Hi, right now we are doing problem number 11 for Engineering Calc Mac 2311E from the Spring 2011 Exam 1. And so number 11 asks us, what is the domain of the function f of x is equal to the square root of 1 minus 2 divided by x. Okay, and it also tells us to consider using a number line. Okay, so first of all, for the domain in this problem, we have to worry about the fact that it's a square root because we know we can't take the square root of a negative number, and also that x being in the denominator because we can't have 0 in our denominator or else our function does not exist. So we have x in the denominator, so we know that x can't be equal to 0. Okay, and so now we have to figure out where what's inside the square root is positive because it can't be negative because we can't take the square root of a negative number. So we're going to do a solvent inequality, and it's going to be 1 minus 2 divided by x greater than or equal to 0. Okay, and so what we're going to do is just add our 2 over x over, so then we get 1 is greater than or equal to 2 over x. Okay, and so now we can just multiply our x over, and assuming that x is positive, then we just get that x is greater than or equal to 2. However, if x is negative, then when we multiply it over here, then we should be changing our inequality, so then it would be x is less than or equal to 2. Okay, and so right now we don't know which one of these it should be for our domain, so that's why we need to use a number line. So that's why number 11 gives you this hint. So we're going to make our number line. Okay, and we're going to put in 0 because that's one of our kind of like our critical values for this problem. And then also 2. And what we're going to do is we're going to choose numbers from our intervals and plug them in and see if they work. Okay, so like for this interval we can plug in 3. We can just plug in any number between 2 and infinity. So 3 is an easy one. Let's do that. So if we plug in 3 here, we get 1 minus 2/3. 1 minus 2/3 is 1/3, which is greater than or equal to 0, so that's right, so this interval works. And we know that we're going to be including 2, so it's x greater than or equal to 2. Okay, and so it's going to be a closed bracket here. Okay, now we want to test this interval between 0 and 2. So let's choose something like 1. So if we plug in 1, we get 1 minus 2 over 1. So it's 1 minus 2, which is negative 1. Negative 1 is not greater than or equal to 0, so this interval does not work. Alright, and so now we need to test this interval right here. So let's plug in negative 1. So if we plug in negative 1, we get 1 minus a 2 over negative 1, which is negative 2. So 1 minus a minus 2 is 1 plus 2, which is 3, which is going to be greater than or equal to 0. So this interval works, because no matter what negative number you plug into this, then it's going to be a negative times this minus sign, which is going to give you a positive. So it's always going to be greater than 0. So we have these two intervals, and now if we want to write them in interval notation, we know that this interval works, so it's going to be negative infinity to 0, and it's a parenthesis because we're not including 0, because we know x can't be equal to 0 because x is in the denominator. And then union bracket 2 to positive infinity. And so our answer is B. And that is the domain of the function.